everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Street Smart Ventures podcast. I'm here with Anthony Pierlioni. Super pumped to have you, Anthony. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure's all mine. I can't tell you how excited I am to be here with you, Michael.
Thank you so much. And, really diving in, I'm going to do my best effort. Anthony and I were laughing. We've known each other for quite some time now, and both of us love elaborating, and we're both long-winded gentlemen, or we can be at times. So this is actually a test. We're going to try to get this in under 40 minutes. So let's see how we do. Our topic really is uncovering and unpacking, leadership and accountability. And I think our conversation really, my biggest hope, Anthony, from your expertise and experience and just what you've been through, and just who you are as a person, right? I think this episode can help so many people because I have, especially in the last handful of years, have seen leadership go awry. I've seen accountability feel really awkward and people avoiding accountability. So I just think you're the perfect person to have on here to talk about these things.
Oh, I love it. I appreciate it. I feel very flattered, but also just excited to be here and have the conversation. It's important stuff.
It is. I just diving right in, Anthony. Before we jump into, is there anything you want our audience listeners to know about you? I don't want to take away from giving you just open platform, just to share with our audience a little bit about who you are and what you're doing currently, and what really has brought you to Street Smart Ventures. Because you're an alumni, you're a key partner, you are someone who really embodies, as your title says, you're an entrepreneurial thinker, which is what we're all about, thinking outside the box. So, the floor is yours for a minute or two, Anthony.
Sure, and I'll try not to be too long-winded, but I'll give you kind of the how I got here, if that's okay. And Street Smart Ventures is such a huge part of that. So, I grew up in low-income housing and on welfare and all these things, and really had a kind of a rough go of it in my youth. And two things saved my life. Number one, being tall. I'm very, very tall. I'm like 6'8". I think at one point I was 6'9". Shrunk already, but anyway. Also, I played basketball as part of that, and it kind of saved my life being tall. So I ended up going to college because of basketball and had a great experience, and then left there feeling like I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life, because I was a part of something much bigger than myself that meant a lot to me, and now that's gone. And I didn't feel that feeling again until Street Smart Ventures. And I worked, Brittany and I were partners, at entry-level partners at a small nonprofit that we worked at. And we ended up meeting Alan McKenzie, the founder and godfather and hero of Street Smart Ventures. And we met with him, started meeting with him, and it totally changed my mindset around what it means to be a resourceful, entrepreneurial thinking professional, and what you can accomplish, in terms of taking what you have to work with and doing the best with that. So, excuse me. Anyway, just moving forward, ended up, Brittany had left, and I did a lot with young adults, but ended up feeling at one point like I just needed to maybe have a bit of a career change. And I moved over to a field of real interest for me, which is animals. Been a lifelong lover of animals, particularly turtles. And now I'm a turtle conservationist, and I get to travel around the world helping, teach people about the plight of turtles, which are the number one most endangered group of animals on the planet, even more than big cats and primates and all these other animals that we know are really endangered. And found myself in veterinary medicine, which is where I work now professionally. I'm in training and all of that. And the organization that I found myself in loves to pride itself on entrepreneurial thinking. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This is exactly what I was born to be a part of. And I found that and only knew that because of my time and experience with Street Smart Ventures. So I owe so much as a professional to those experiences, the people that I met along the way and was able to help, and especially the people that helped me along the way.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Anthony. I love hearing it every time you share parts of your story. So thank you. I know our audience will too. Diving right in, I think, in parts of your story, you really mentioned your life changed because of your mindset shifting. Just really how you could be seeing maybe the same thing from a different perspective, different angle, what would you say, how has that impacted with your own, transformational journey of personal growth and thinking like an entrepreneur? How does that impact your definition of leadership?
It's a good question. I think to answer your specific question, I think that we need to keep an open mind and lead with grace and go into situations uh, understanding that we might not have all the answers. And I think in leadership that can be tough. And I did have opportunities in my social work days to get into leadership, and then also in my veterinary experience as well. Now I actually wrote a book about the transition from social work to vet med and leadership. It's called Leadership Through Fresh Eyes, because I brought that social worker approach into my veterinary work. It only took me a couple of minutes to make a shameless plug, so forgive me. But I just want people to kind of understand like what I'm into and what I'm about. But yeah, I think we tend sometimes to like, experience is such a great thing to have. It's such a great superpower, but you have to be careful, because with experience comes that kind of problem solving too early sometimes, assuming you have the answers when you might not actually have all the information. And you have to be decisive when you're a leader. That's a huge skill to have as well, but it's really important to just kind of pump the brakes and make sure you're using like the funnel technique, so to speak. Get all the information you can before you start to really zone in and start problem solving. So I think that's something that I've learned, and that that fits along with the entrepreneurial piece, which is like being creative, keeping an open mind, and looking for opportunities. I think they kind of go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And would you say there's different styles of leadership, or what has your experience been with other leaders in your personal life and your professional life? Like, what have you really noticed being around other leaders?
I'll take it to something that matters a whole lot to me. And I could think of the countless conversations that I've had with Brittany over the years about the Enneagram personality typing. It's like the DISC or Myers-Briggs, or all these different things. And I love those, those formats as well. But the Enneagram is something that I was first introduced to during my social work days, way back when. And I think, the main piece there is you have your self-awareness of like, okay, here are my innate skills that make me a superstar, make me really special, but here are my opportunities for growth, the things that I might need to focus on a little more. I'm not naturally an organized person. I'm an idea person. And that brings a lot of important flavor to a team. But as a professional, I need to figure out how to do the organization piece if I'm going to be successful. And there are 9 different personality types, and every single one of them has a list of innate skills, ways that we just kind of are naturally, that make us such great friends and family members and teammates and all that. But then there are those areas of opportunity. So I think the thing that I've learned in terms of different leadership strategies is that, we are all different people that are coming in, and we are helping from a leadership perspective people. And that's whether you're in a leadership role or not. Anyone can act as a leader, whether you're brand new on the team or you're, the top of the organization. I think that in order for us to be effective leaders, we need to start with that self-awareness piece, figure out what we each need to do individually to show up and be the best version of ourselves that we can be, but also to understand the people on our team who don't think the same way that we do. Because I think, the golden rule is treat people how you want to be treated. And that's a great starting point, but not everyone wants to be treated the way that you do or that I do. A great example is like, I'm the type of person, like if I donate money or time or help someone, you better believe I want my picture on social media. I want my name in the program. Like I'm like, I play for the trophy, and I want people to see me. I'm kind of still the attention hungry kid that didn't get attention when I was really young. And there are a lot of people that don't want that. They want their praise to be quiet and behind closed doors. So, and both of those are right. But as a leader, you need to understand which is which and try to navigate that the best you can. You don't have to be perfect all the time, but you have to try. The effort is the most important thing.
So it's knowing yourself and then knowing who's around you.
Exactly. And you can't really know how to work with those around you that are different until you really know yourself. Yeah.
And it's so true. And I love that you acknowledge we're all different, because I got to be honest with you. Like when I was much younger, I was like, oh, like a leader is just someone who's in the front of the room at the podium telling us what to do. Like maybe I didn't express it that black and white, but like to be honest, like if you had asked 18-year-old Michael, like leader, okay, it's just like direction, 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 like the boss. And there was no nuance to that. So like I just really appreciate your nuanced understanding of, and I'd love to hear you talk about more about, sounds like there are some universal leadership principles, but at the same time, we're not all cookie cutter clones. Like we can still be different. Like I don't have to be your exact style, Anthony, and like neither, and there shouldn't be that expectation, sounds like.
Exactly. And I think that's a slippery slope, and something that people that are new to leaderships get wrong sometimes is they see a successful leader and they say, all right, I'm going to just try to be like that person. Like a young comedian just
Mm-hmm.
gets up on stage and just acts like a comedian that they like. Like that may not be you.
Mm-hmm.
There may be someone out there who is similar. So I'll give you an example. Alan McKenzie was an Enneagram Type 7, which is what I am. So for me, I saw a lot of myself in him and the things he did and the way that he did them. One of the best, probably the best boss I ever had was in my veterinary career, and she's the same as me as well, the same Enneagram type. And because I've done so much work with the Enneagram, I can kind of pick out who people are, and I've had
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to give people the test and see what they are and that sort of thing. So for me, I think it's been very useful to see who the successful sevens are, because those people are built just like me, but find a way to be successful, given the natural shortcomings that any type would have, but they happen to be my specific type. So that's been
Mm-hmm.
really helpful.
And I know we talked about this not on the recording, but in preparing for our podcast chat today, Anthony. I think it'll surprise very few of those who know me, but I've not taken the Enneagram, so I don't know my number. But I guess, yeah, I'll be after the chat. I'll ask you what number you think I am before I even take the test. But I talked about the disc training leadership, and I know I told you I scored like immensely high, like almost entirely on the S for supportive.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because from what you're sharing, okay, like you're super high. It was I, right, on the disc for you?
Yes. Yep.
So for me, like my worldview was, okay, let's everyone feel connected, let's feel safe, let's everyone feel understood, which is wonderful. But like over time, I've had those experiences where like, oh, I was stuck on making decisions and like doing things to move forward. So I'm hearing it loud and clear. Like, okay, like I will never naturally be a super high like directive D or this or that. And it's not that I'm like forcing myself to, but it's being aware, Michael, like it's an opportunity for you to still shine in your supportive and who you are. But
Yes.
just be aware that, you know, keep an eye on making sure you're not getting stuck in that decision making or this or that. So it's a really interesting thing you're pointing out.
Totally. And I think like if you were an S who was working with a bunch of Ds using the disc profile, like in my mind, in leadership role, the goal would be to understand how important you are on a team. Like if you're working with a bunch of Ds who can get in there and make decisions really fast, sometimes you can be kind of trying to feel things out and almost get steamrolled to an extent.
It's happened. Oh, it's happened.
Right?
I've literally like 5 minutes in, I'd be like, "What the hell? Like, am I
Yeah.
not here?" Like,
Right. So for you, the confidence has to come to say, no, what I bring to the table is extremely important. And if I'm not here to share my perspective, then all these people are going to steamroll everybody on the team, and they're going to miss this point, and you're going to make everyone mad or scared or whatever. And I'm here to think about, so the best teams, particularly leadership teams, I'll say it's particularly important for leadership teams, but the best teams of any kind have all matter of different diversity, not just in the traditional sense that we think about the word diversity, but also diversity of thought as well. Bringing people in who have a different mindset, a different way of thinking about things, a different set of innate kind of strategies within them that they use to navigate life's challenges.
Mm. Um, I want to talk about trust for a second because I know like you're someone who builds trust so easily, but do you have any advice on just your own experiences or what you've witnessed in your career and your own personal life on like what can help to build trust and what destroys it quickly and about that the relationship and like how to repair it and just all those nuances of I think just kind of hopping off of our own the personality differences and there's so many different types of people out there in the world, like how do you even begin to approach like working with so many different types of people as a leader?
That's a really good question. I think that like my love language is words of affirmation. I talk a good game. For me, it's backing it up. And that's such a big thing, especially in leadership, because you're you need to show people the follow through. If you don't have that follow through, that's the trust is gone. So, if people can identify you as someone who says one thing or does another, and this is perspective too. So you don't even need to say one thing and do another. You can say one thing and then appear to not do it. Like and appear like you can do it and think that you're all about it. But then the perspective is that you're not, the perception is that you're not necessarily that person
Mm,
or really about that thing. So if people around you can kind of, I think people live with a certain amount of comfortable skepticism and fear. I
mhm,
think the Enneagram Type 6 is the most common in society these days. And I think back to this theory of the tiger and the water hole that, over hundreds of thousands of years as humans were evolving, you had, the danger around you. Let's call that the tiger. And then
mhm,
you had the fun resource type thing that you needed to survive and that maybe gave you an opportunity to bathe or drink and do good things in the water hole. And if you were someone who naturally thought about the water hole a lot, you were more likely to die and not pass on your genes to the
mhm,
next generation. But those that could focus on the tiger were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. And that's why today the Real Housewives of wherever is going to be popular. And we could wait in traffic and then finally get up to see the accident on the other side of the road. And even though we were cursing everyone that stopped to rubberneck in front of us, we do the same thing once we get there. So,
mhm,
we are kind of tuned in to that. So anyway, I think that we need to understand that yes, we want to lead with grace and give people benefit of the doubt, but also understand that it's natural for people to question.
mhm.
So if you're in a leadership role, it's your job to make sure that you're being clear and transparent about what's happening, but also with that transparency, you need to make sure that it's shown that you're backing up what you say. Otherwise,
Mhm.
trust is gone.
Mm. And that leads right into kind of segueing into accountability. And I think, you know, we've talked without really naming it accountability per se, but I'm curious, Anthony, what's one belief about accountability you feel like needs to be challenged, if there is one that you'd want to challenge?
I don't know, Michael. I don't know that anything comes to mind there. I don't know. That's a great question. This isn't good for radio, but I don't
Well, no,
know.
because I bring that up because in thinking about this, like for me, accountability was scary because and maybe this was my own experiences where I had leaders who didn't have that empathy or nuance in understanding who I was. You know what I'm saying? So kind of
Uh-huh.
like you shared how leaders should be aware of who's around you, who you're working with. In some cases I didn't have that. So accountability, like in being like I always felt like, okay, like when I see this person or this leader, I'm gonna be wrong or something's not right. And so that colored my worldview of leadership and accountability for a period of time until I had more positive experiences. So this was kind of one of those like out of left field questions, but it brought up a little something for me. I don't know if me saying that brings up something for you.
It does actually. That helps. That helps put it into better context. I, I think something that we had talked about in our previous conversation, actually, around the idea that helping someone, holding someone accountable to doing their job, and this is something I really believed as a leader, and something that I wrote about in that book that I mentioned, holding someone accountable to do their job, but also supporting them. and helping them any way you can. Those don't have to be, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can do both of those things at the same time. You can genuinely care about someone and do everything you can to help them, and really do everything you can to help them, while also holding them accountable. And that's how the conversations, I think, should be held. I think new leaders and people lacking in emotional intelligence that are in leadership positions miss that. And they get caught up on the, I need to be transparent. I need to tell them, you need to do this part of your job, or it will lead to more disciplinary action. You need to do this part of the job, or it may lead to termination. Like, you can say those things and still care. So I know that might sound weird, but from a leader, you have to believe that, I think, to be successful. So I think if there's one thing about like accountability, it's that maybe is a misconception, especially for new leaders and people that just don't get it right. It's the lack of empathy and compassion for people who, like, if you're having that conversation with them, they either don't get it, the message wasn't clear, or maybe both, or maybe they're struggling with something. We all, this is life, and work isn't life. Work isn't all of life. It's part of life. And, if we're going to be successful, we need to really try to connect with our people and support them, and understand that we all have times where life is tougher than other times. And sometimes it's like a roller coaster and it's constantly going up and down. And sometimes the curve is a little bit slower and longer, but like, we don't know what somebody might be going through. It's all back to that perception thing. So, again, lead with grace and curiosity. And I think that goes a long way.
It does. And I'm playing, like, as I'm here with you, I'm playing like devil's advocate in my own head, because, like I shared, I'm a naturally high supporter. So that's how I would naturally approach it. But I want to ask you, as someone who's a really effective decision maker and visionary, like, what would you say if it was like me, knowing, oh, shoot, Michael, you're like super high S, and, you shared how you have felt nervous about having a harder direct conversation or this or that. So, like, let's say there's a scenario where, like, you're piloting a new initiative or program and you're working with the team and you've laid out, reasonably clear expectations, and you're kind of met with, whether you want to call it resistance or hesitation or just like, steps not being followed. How do you balance that compassion with the need to move forward? And, like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, at what point does that that nuance of compassion, empathy with the accountability, where does that, like, hard on, like you said, I've had those experiences of where accountability just felt like what I'm doing wrong and just disciplinary. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the scenario you play out is actually one that happens for me a lot, because I'm an idea person. And like I said, with that lack of organization, or maybe even being downright scattered at times, has led me in the past to just kind of roll something out that I think is a good idea without really doing my due diligence early in my career, early in my leadership journey, and then being met with, dude, what the heck is wrong with you? And then I've got my sixes who are, worried about the tiger in life. And they're like, what is this going to do to this? What about this? Did you think about that? And then there are like the Enneagram type ones that are, perfectionists, like Mary Poppins. They want things to be practically perfect in every way. They'll question, because they're very big on like moral compass and is this right? And, did you think about that? So what I learned just going along with that kind of personality typing piece and thinking about the different members of my teams that I've been on is identifying who those people are. Because if they're really good about asking questions when I roll something out, I need to be the leader that I should be and pull those people in early. And not just them too. There are some people that are not likely, they're the least likely on the team to go knock on the door and say, hey boss, I have a question. I have a concern. I saw this, they're just kind of go with the flow, pacifists, don't want to rock the boat. So pulling in all those folks ahead of time to say, hey, here's what I'm working on. What do you think? And you don't need to pull in everyone, but to pull in a group that you feel like has a good understanding of the team, but also has a different perspective than you do, can help a whole lot. Yes, it might make it feel like there's a little more work going into things, but you could totally avoid that kind of rollout, frustration that happens sometimes when people don't react well to whatever you're pitching to them.
Yeah, and I'll admit I took it. There's past times where maybe I did take it a little personally. So like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna fully admit like maybe I
Yeah.
didn't show it. Like I trying to keep it cool over here in the moment, but like, do you have any advice on like what happens when times get tough, like not taking it personally?
Yeah, that was the other part of the question too. I missed that. I missed answering that, but you're totally right, and I appreciate you circling back because I did have something for that. I think it's just honesty. Like, hey guys, I'm not perfect. Here's why I thought this would work a lot. Let's continue this conversation. I know, this person and this person, you had some thoughts about this. Why don't we meet and discuss this a little more? Just, I don't think there's anything wrong with being transparent about the plan, letting
Mm-hmm.
people know why you made the decision you did, but then
Mm-hmm.
also inviting more conversation. Now, if time has passed, owning up to the fact, like, if the time for that has passed, and this, they don't realize that this was something that had to happen really quickly, that sort of thing. So, the damage is done. It is what it is, sort of thing. Sometimes you just have to deliver that message and be as honest as you can with that too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, but learning from it, and then in the future pulling them in when you can.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we can't. Sometimes we don't have the time, and just being
Mm-hmm.
honest about that is, I think,
Mm-hmm.
I think huge.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really helpful, and it's kind of making me think too. Back to an experience I'm thinking of, professionally. So, and I think I did some of the things we talked about. Like I did remember, like I said, hey, like you're right, like we did this and this, and I listened to that feedback and I pulled out, hey, like I'm not hearing it's all bad. I like totally tuned in. Okay, and I acknowledge I'm totally hearing you're putting out fires. You're burned out as a team member in your own agency. This is a collaborative new thing we're piloting. So I did what I could in that moment to
Yeah.
try to that safety and that trust is like I hear you, I see you, you're doing a lot, and I'm not asking you, and I'm not from the ivory tower. I'm not trying to like again, like I would never expect of someone else what I wouldn't want to have happen to me either. I'm very fair that way. I hope. Um, so I think I can acknowledge that was a win in that moment for me. But I think going forward, in my preparation for you, Anthony, I'm just curious, how do I keep that momentum going of like clarity and ownership, and is there a difference in what we should all be thinking about? I'm using me kind of selfishly in
Yeah.
the moment to learn with you and for our listeners, but how do you just keep that the momentum going with clarity and ownership when people are burned out and understaffed? And I know it's probably a similar question what I've asked already, but both from an individual one-on-one or a team approach, is there any time where you feel like pulling someone in a one-on-one versus a small team approach is more effective?
I don't know how well this is going to answer your question. I went to something, and because you do what I do, and you ask multifaceted questions where you can pick a piece and go with it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick a piece and go with it. So I had a thought pop in my head
Mm-hmm.
as we were discussing. So I think that your audience, the people that you partner with, the people that are interested in the work that you do, and also the people that I know that you and I are, we care.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're the type of leaders, and most people are. And I think that the people that will tune into this would be these types of people as well. But they're the type of people that might struggle to have difficult conversations,
Mm-hmm.
right? It doesn't come easily. And I think everyone, let me be clear, everyone struggles with difficult conversations, but there are some types that move towards conflict and they're comfortable in that, but they have to learn to soften their approach. And we have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those type of leaders in my new field of veterinary medicine. I've been in the field for almost 10 years, so I say my new field, but it's not that new. So those folks need to learn to soften their approach. I think the
Mm-hmm.
majority of people that would tune into this and care about Street Smart Ventures mission and everything that you guys do, and who we are as people, need to learn early on how to navigate those difficult decisions in a appropriate way,
Mm-hmm.
successfully. So I think number one is care, and that's easy for you, and that's easy for me because I really do care. So I have to make sure I'm showing it, but I have to do it effectively. And I think there's a fine line between clarity and showing that you care. I see sometimes people get caught up worrying about people's feelings a little bit too much. And then we call it the crap sandwich, right? If I'm going to bring someone in and give them feedback, I'm going to
Mhm.
tell them what they're doing well. I'm going to then tell them what I need to tell them, and then I'm going to finish that conversation up with, but go get them, everything's still good, we're good, you're not in trouble, like I want you to know that, and I'm rooting for you, and I know you're going to do a good job. If that bread is too thick,
Mhm.
it's like the sandwich isn't going to taste as good and work as well
Mhm.
as what we want. So I think we need to make sure we have the balance between caring and clarity,
Mhm.
um, especially because there are some people, we think about different types of people out there. Some people are going to hear the sandwich and say, you're phony, you're not really
Mhm.
being honest with me,
Mhm.
that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So I don't know how much that gets to answering your question, but that's where my thought kind of went to, is just something else as an aside to think about is, and it goes back to that personal piece of like who I am and what I
Mhm.
need to do to be successful. Because some of us need to make sure we're being more direct, because natural, like Michael, you are an emotionally intelligent person. You are about people's feelings, as an S. That's what you do. So that's not going to be a problem for you most of the time, unless you overcompensate and
Mhm.
try as a professional to say, well, I need to be tough.
Yeah.
And then you come off as really rigid to people who don't know you or something like that.
Mhm.
That's the
Mhm.
only way that would, the perception would be that you don't care, because you do. That's easy.
Yeah,
That's the easy
yeah,
part.
no, it's my biggest takeaway, Anthony, really from our chat so far, really has just been get enough information to make informed decisions. Again, take time to know who you are as a leader, know who's around you, but at the same time, you know, take that time, but don't get so bogged down and maybe over analyze in every scenario, but just maybe have that overall awareness of, okay, I'm naturally going to approach things maybe this way. Just be aware of balancing that in the other direction. So again, knowing I'm really supportive, just making sure I have that gentle balance of, autonomy, decision making, etc. And so it's just being aware of it's not trying to overcompensate, but just being well rounded.
Yeah, absolutely. Trying to come back to center.
Yeah, and I kind of want to ask you too, like as like a bonus question, like do you have any thoughts? Because I felt this way in my life where like because I don't have always have the authority, title, or buy-in. Like, do you have any thoughts on for anyone listening who's like, well, I'm not really like a manager or this or that? Like, how can we all build in those leadership and accountability principles, thoughts, mantras, what have you, in our professional personal lives?
I think leadership is not a title. Leadership is a mindset. And I think a lot of times when people think leadership, they think boss, like the
Mm-hmm.
person, someone's going to come in and it's their job to tell people what to do. And then everyone's going to fall into rank. And, if the person outranks them, then they're in charge. Leadership, that's not leadership. Leadership is, my coach used to say this in college, my college basketball coach. He used to say, I don't care if you're a freshman and you just got to school and you've never even put on the uniform yet, like this basketball season hasn't started, you can still act as a leader. You can find yourself at a party with some friends and someone's about to make a bad decision, and you can act as a leader and step in and say, why don't we go over this way and do this instead?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that opportunity is around us everywhere. And I think with what's going on, like politically in our country,
Mm-hmm.
and with people being as divided as they've been, at least in recent times, and people having a hard time to understanding other people and their mindset and that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
there's opportunity around us to act as leaders and to lead with
Mm-hmm.
grace and to try to find empathy for people. And I see people all the time, and I'm not perfect, but I see people all the time just missing their opportunity to act as a leader. So I kind of use that as like a call to action to say, like,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about entrepreneurial thinking outside the box, remaining creative, being open to, finding creative ways to do the best you can with what you have to work with. We
Mm-hmm.
each are living lives right now where we are constantly met with opportunities to act as leaders, and we fail. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a challenge to everyone, including you and I.
Yeah, no, it's true. Where, like I shared, my early definition of leadership, just through my own experiences, was that boss, that punitive. But it really is about just opportunities for positive change and that passion. And whether you want to just you see a problem out there and say, let's fix this, let's make it better. Or maybe it's you want to create something amazing, or a common purpose. So there's so many ways you can personally define that leadership. I did kind of, as we're getting close to our time closing out, I'm doing super well actually keeping this under the 45-minute hour mark with you, Anthony. I really appreciate just the reminder that, because I've seen that a lot. I feel like where um I've been around people, and this is not a criticism, but just because they didn't have, whether it's a title or an official, like, a director knighted them like knight leader of the round table, like there was no like official, but it's just this opportunity we all can make a positive difference. And there's, when we just can find ways to use our time, our talents, our skills, it's a waste if we don't. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Something as silly as like we think about, or like even see the videos online of like putting your cart back at the store, after you're shopping, like you can make excuses and say, well, there's somebody who's paid to do that. And now that's job security. They got to go and get my cart. And I paid all this money and I just had to check out my own groceries and, forget you guys. But I think about the person whose car is going to get hit by the renegade cart that gets blown by the wind, and I think it's just that act of stopping and thinking about others. And again, I'm not perfect, so I miss the mark, I'm sure, all day, every day. But how many other times can we identify little things like that that perhaps make a difference? That's just a stupid analogy, but another one too I think about all the time. I fly a lot for my job, for what between my work, my veterinary work, and then my turtle advocacy around the country and now internationally and stuff like that. I always fly in the aisle seat. I just happen to fit there better. I'm a huge guy. So when the plane stops, I always get up and I start asking everyone around me, is this your bag? Is this like, let me get your bags for you from the overhead compartment? Cause I'm huge and it's like chest height, whereas other people are like physically struggling to do it. And there's probably a lot of people that look at me and are like, what the heck is this guy? And like, his butt just hit me in the face while he's turning around trying to get bags. And like, there's no space to be doing this. But I just feel like, if I'm there, what am I doing to make this situation better? I've got nothing better to do. I want to stand up from a selfish standpoint because I've been sitting for so long. And, I was given this huge height for whatever reason. Let me put it to use and maybe help somebody, even though it might get awkward or people might, roll their eyes at me once in a while.
Yeah, no, I love those examples of everyday leadership. It's not just in a meeting. It's not just in an official, again, capacity. There's ways we all can incorporate that. And again, you're living proof, Anthony, that leadership has transformed your life from your upbringing to where you are now. So it's those leadership moments. It's those times you can think like an entrepreneur and think outside of the box and what can make my life better, the community better, the world better. It's those type of mindset shifts that change lives in the world.
And those things are huge if you are in an official leadership role too. So like in the veterinary hospital, it's like, hey, I'm the hospital manager. I have 100 people that report up to me, but I'm going to go and clean up that poop because I just came around the corner and saw it happen. I'm going to clean it. I'm not going to go to my team and say, hey, there's a poop over there. I'm going to go and clean it up myself. Or, when I was in my social work days and running like a social rehabilitation program, like, okay, I'm going to take, I see the trash is full. I've got dozens of people here that I can ask to take the trash out. I'm going to take the trash out. I see it's full and it's a good opportunity to walk out and see the grounds and, maybe say hello to some people along the way or whatever, but like, I can do this.
It's the journey to not just the destination. That's what I'm hearing loud and clear. Enjoy the journey, have fun. We're two guys who love having fun. Like honestly, it truly is. And I think my one final kind of bonus thought to ask you before we wrap up, Anthony, is when you shared your story of being on the airplane, getting people's bags, helping everyone out. You kind of mentioned, some people may think, what's this guy doing? You brought up a great point. Is as humans, as leaders, entrepreneurs, what would you say to someone who felt bogged down by criticism or other people's opinions? Because like you said, you're going to have people who probably thanked you. Oh, so nice. Thank you. You may have someone who's like, whether it's a bad day or this or that, they're just pissed off, so, what keeps you going, like when you encounter those kind of little mini setbacks?
That's tough for me. So you know who else is an Enneagram Type 7? Michael Scott from The Office,
Mm.
Steve Carell's character in The Office. And you see in the episodes, stuff happens, emotional things, some feedback that he gets, or a phone call, or a comment that someone makes, and then it throws him on this tailspin for the rest of the episode, where he's doing all this outlandish thing,
Mm.
all these outlandish things because of how he's feeling after the feedback he gets. So that's a very human thing, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also something I identify with a lot. Like, I'm like a dopamine chaser. You mentioned, we like to have a good time. I do, and I'm always trying to, look for a good time. And it's tough. It's tough, but I think for me, what's helped me is the focus. So I mentioned I'm naturally scattered. I've written 5 books that have been published. So to me, that is my professional growth as a person, to say, yes, I'm the type of person to have an idea. I say, hey, let's start a band, and then you're like, none of us play an instrument and you can't sing. What are you talking about? Like, I come up with the idea, but it stops there. So the idea of me having the thought of me having the idea to write a book, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But actually buckling down and working for a year to 3 years to write a book, because that's how long it takes me to do that, and actually plugging away at it, that's success. So when you talk about, like, how do you deal with the curveballs that are thrown at you, the negative criticism that comes out, especially like social media and things like that, is, for me, it's staying focused on the big picture, and understanding how small and trivial those things are. And then also even having pity for those people that come out and just do something and saying, you know what, they must be they said all those nasty things about the thing that I shared about the work I'm doing on social media. You know what? I have a little bit of pity for them right now, and
Mm-hmm.
really feel for them, because they're obviously going through something. But focus and see, okay, there was one nasty comment, but there were 15 positive comments, or
Mm-hmm.
there was just a really positive
Mm-hmm.
comment,
Yeah.
whatever. Or I recently had a great conversation with my friend Michael, who made me feel good about what I'm doing. Like, trying to step out of that and reframe it,
Mm-hmm.
which is not easy to do, and sometimes it can
Mm-hmm.
feel impossible, or we miss the mark on that. But I think staying focused is a big part of it, and having those, for me, having those larger goals, that, like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to accomplish this thing that I've wanted to do, and this trivial stuff is not going to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little bump in the road, if it even is a bump in the road.
Yeah. No, I'm like visually thinking about that journey, like we're going to enjoy the journey, but just be aware there will be criticism along the way. So you can expect it, but just don't let it define you.
I like that too. Like understanding ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not reactive, you're proactive. I know
Mm-hmm.
it's coming. So it's just a matter of when it comes, but that doesn't, you still feel it. I
Mm-hmm.
can feel right now the pit in my stomach that I get when I publish a YouTube video, or when I write a book, or and someone has, because I've gotten negative feedback. Most of the feedback, almost all the feedback, has been positive. But I remember this quote from Madonna, like, if there's 100 people in a room and 99 of them love what I'm doing, I'm going to worry about that one that doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. That's a natural
It's true. Yep.
thing. Yeah, that's total, and that's that tiger in the water hole. You're going to focus on the tiger. That's how we survive.
Mm-hmm.
That's a part of our genetic makeup.
Mm-hmm.
But again, success as a professional is contingent upon our ability to appropriately compartmentalize and navigate those things as they come at us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's our very success depends on it.
Mm. It's almost like that little bit of stress. Like if I had, because like honestly, like listen, we're recording this mid-January. I always take like a long holiday break, which is wonderful because there's no stress. But at the end of the day, like I'm thinking, oh, I'm a little off my routine, which is expected. It's lovely, but like it's hard to get even little things done when I don't have an expectation or that routine. And so I'm also, as you're talking, I'm like, well, does that tiger serve that purpose? Like it just keeps us agile and pivoting and, just keeping things going. Because if we had no stress, no pressure, no expectations, it's maybe a little bit harder to reach our goals
Yeah.
and our vision and our dreams.
Yeah, I think for anyone that lives with anxiety, whether it's like generalized anxiety, like that they have all the time, like that's my wife, that's her superpower.
Hmm.
So she's very good at planning. Uh, she's ready when crap hits the fan. All of a sudden now I'm not anxious most of the time, but now I'm anxious and I don't know how to deal with it. Whereas she's like totally calm because she deals with it all the time. And she's like, I knew
Hmm.
this was going to happen. I've got a plan A through F. And I'm like, oh, well, that's good because I was Mr. Optimism and I didn't think this was going to happen. And now I don't know what to do. But for me, the anxiety that I don't get all the time, when it does come up, it's a superpower because it gets my butt in gear.
Hmm.
Because I might be scattered, but say, okay, I got to organize myself. This is important. I've got
Hmm.
this talk coming up. And now the fear's creeping in, or it's,
Hmm.
I realize how I don't have a lot of time here. I need to get it together. Whereas she's going to be organized because that anxiety is there from the beginning. So whether you have it all the time or just it comes and goes, anxiety
Hmm.
is definitely a superpower for sure.
Hmm.
It's how we get things done.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
totally.
embracing it as that too. Yeah, it's tough
Yeah.
because it feels like crap sometimes, but
No, it does. And that's the thing is, I think you and I are all about fun. And if the world could be nothing but fun, I would
mm,
not say no to that. But I think there's
yeah,
times where you're right. There's always something to learn and push through or just grow
yeah,
from that experience.
yeah. And if it was fun all the time, it wouldn't be fun. I'm thinking of like that cartoon where like uh, Donald Duck's nephews wake up on Christmas morning and they wish that it's Christmas morning every day, and then it gets old. Like every day they
Mm,
wake up and people are caroling and it's the same meal and it's all their favorite stuff, but when it's every day, it's not as special.
mm,
And yeah, I don't know. I think that it's like I say to my daughter all the time, my 11-year-old who is a perfectionist, she has straight A's and she puts so much pressure on herself, and we don't. I don't know where it comes from. Enneagram type 1. And I say to her all the time, the thing that makes life beautiful is that life isn't always beautiful. So,
mm,
the fun is fun because life isn't always
mm,
fun. So, yes,
mm.
we're going to seek it out because we want as much of it as we can get. But yeah, I think, getting the work done and grinding through the tough parts is what makes it all so rewarding.
Mm. Listen, Anthony, I could keep talking to you for hours and hours and hours. I so
Same,
appreciate I think the world of you, Anthony. I
same.
think I've learned so much through our chat today. I know our listeners will learn so much. Just closing out, is there anything on your heart and mind you want to leave us with, as we wrap up for the day?
Yeah, for anyone out there who's thinking, about what they want to build, the life they want to build for themselves. I could remember early in my career, right, sitting in a cubicle not far from where Brittany sat and thinking about the stuff that we wanted to build way back then. If that person could see my life now, he would be absolutely floored by what I've been able to accomplish and the life I'm able to lead. And so much of that is thanks to Street Smart and Alan and Brittany and people like yourself, Michael, who have come along the way, who have just meant so much to me. And I think, the key to getting ahead is getting started. And success comes when preparation meets opportunity. These are things I used to say as a young professional, when I was first joining up with Street Smart, and things that I've kept with myself all those years since. And I just think if we're constantly trying to better our situation and just showing up, and we're curious and we're looking for exciting things that we can try to build, sometimes those things that we start building just crumble and turn into nothing. But those experiences are things that we continue to take with us throughout our life. And I just think, if we can build something that we're proud of, that the younger version of ourselves is proud of, even if that means we're proud of the journey that it took to get there, that's a really powerful and amazing thing. And to me, that's success. I think mostly in America, people think of success as stability, and that goes to money and all that sort of thing. I think we can't take any of that with us. So it's experiences and being able to show up and be excited about the things that you're building. And if you can do that at work, oh my gosh, that's really special, because the majority of people don't want to work. And I'm one of those. Actually, I would probably just play with turtles all day if I didn't have to work. But again, maybe that would lose its fun. So it's that balance. I think work-life balance is important, but I don't see it as balance necessarily. I see them as things that kind of fit together. I want to enjoy my work. It's very important to me. So being able to be creative in my professional life is something that I first started doing with Street Smart Ventures all those years ago, and it has never left and has continued to serve me, even being outside of the social work field and outside of really working directly with Street Smart even these days.
Mm. So beautifully said, Anthony. You're someone who does have that. You look for and create and use your creativity in everyday life, and you've done incredible things. And I think you're just someone who is a great role model and mentor. And I just know our listeners will get so much from our conversation today.
I appreciate you, Michael. Thank you for everything that you do. Spreading these important messages, bringing people together, and inspiring the next generation of people that are going to find creative ways to solve the world's problems, even if it's on a small scale.
Yeah.
Even
No,
better.
hey, you know what? We're gonna keep growing, and no, I just can't. It's honestly, it's not work to chat with people like yourself, Anthony. It's pure joy. And on that note, I could again talk for hours with you, but I'll sadly have to stop the recording in a second. And thank you all for listening. And until next time, bye for now.
Bye.